I think it's important for Gibraltar to have a minister from Gibraltar recognized as part of the UK delegation and being able to be there and be briefed and so on by the negotiating team and add our own support on achieving and keeping to the 1.5 degree Celsius increase target. So I think it's important for Gibraltar. It's important in other ways that lots of very positive and interesting contacts were made. I had discussions with the Secretary of State for Transport, with the Minister for Climate, met a lot of people from around the world, was present at presentations on new technologies, new initiatives which we can bring back. So on the whole, I think it's quite beneficial. We also signed up to a new global initiative for the decarbonisation of waste, which aims to reduce emissions from waste over the next 50 years. So I think, and it's good to be there, networking with people in the fore of climate science and climate politics.
The biggest breakthrough at COP28 was a commitment to transition away from fossil fuels. What can Gibraltar do here? We have a new power station, which is, of course, LNG, which is a fossil fuel, and bunkering continues to be a major part of our economy.
Yeah, there was some disappointment because a lot of countries and certainly NGOs and the scientific community wanted a phasing out rather than a transitioning away in the text. And they wanted other things like peak production in 2025. But I think it is an important step. Clearly, it's a challenge, but it's a challenge all over the world. And this is why perhaps the text hasn't been more specific. Gibraltar uses what is defined as a transitional fuel from the heavier oils and diesel to carbon neutral or carbon free. So LNG is still recognized as a better option than others, but clearly we have to move in other directions. I was very impressed with what the maritime industry is doing, and we were present at presentations there and at discussions there with world leaders in this, and the maritime industry is setting targets for decarbonisation within the next 10 to 20 years. It's a huge challenge, but I suspect that from bunkering, it'll be industry-led. They're moving even beyond LNG. They're moving to ammonia as a source of fuel, and a lot of ports are working in that direction. So I think that will be resolved by the international industry rather than by us. As far as our own power generation, clearly solar is the easiest one here, and that has to take off in a bigger way, and there are a few projects on the way, and new technologies are also being developed. But I think that ultimately, it may be that we have to, apart from reducing consumption, is consider cable links to Morocco, for example, where there is an excess of carbon neutral energy, wind energy and so on, expensive, but there are proposals now that's been looked at for a while.
I was going to say, you've mentioned transitioning away as opposed to phasing out. Gibraltar's size really can't help us. It's not like we can have wind turbines or...
This is a challenge. And in other countries, for example, in the Channel Islands, they have resolved this by linking up to mainland France and using renewable energy there. Clearly, that's not an option for us. But there are other things that we can do to decarbonize, and the waste issue is one, or better treatment of waste, more recycling, because it's not just power generation that contributes to our carbon footprints. It's the way of life. I think another thing that I've picked up there and that we're going to include in our 25-year plan, which we're now tweaking again as a result of COP, is carbon literacy, that we should all be aware of our own personal carbon footprints so that we can personally do something about it, as individuals, as households, as businesses, as government departments. So I think we'll be seeing another initiative there as a result of that.
You mentioned waste. We have, of course, the sewage treatment plant has been in the works for a number of years. It's had all sorts of problems. What's happening with that?
That is now the technical team is in discussion with the preferred bidder in order to tweak some of the... I think there's going to be a site visit to a similar plant elsewhere. And we're hoping that the contracts will be signed within a couple of months. That's actually looking quite positive now, at last.
You mentioned actually being able to transpose things, lessons learned at COP28. The ESG did say that they hoped that your presence did translate into action here. And whether the Select Committee on Climate Change would sit, saying that it was going to sit before the end of the year.
That might be a challenge now. This is co-chaired by the Chief Minister and the Leader of the Opposition. Clearly, as we know, the negotiations on the treaty have kicked in again, and that obviously has to take priority because that will also have implications on how we deal with our carbon footprint. But I think it will be sitting very early in the new year. I have a challenge for all Select Committee members. I want them all to calculate their carbon footprints and to work on it themselves. This is one of the things that I intend to put on the agenda. I think it will be an effective body, and I certainly will do my best to ensure that it is. But I know that I have the support of the Chief Minister and the Deputy Chief Minister, who chairs our Net Zero delivery body in this.